Social media has been a part of my journey, an integral part of my journey because I bought my first deal in 2019 from somebody that was following me, a wholesaler or a newer wholesaler. And since that worked out to become a very profitable transaction, I just felt that, hey, this is something that I can duplicate and it's kind of scalable.
Hey there, I am Dr. Jason Ballara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast, where we explore the why behind success. Every week, I meet with real estate investors, veterinary entrepreneurs, mindset coaches, authors, and fitness professionals to uncover their why and how it drives them on the winding road to success. What is your why?
Hi, everyone. I'm Jason Ballara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast. Today, I'm here with Alex Camacho. Alex is a full-time real estate investor for the last 7 years. I've known Alex probably a couple of years now. I feel like it's probably even longer than I think it is. But I've gotten the opportunity to get to know Alex and kind of know a lot about what he's doing in the real estate space, what's been going on. So rather than try and read through your bio and all of the things you've done, Alex, I want to let you tell your story. But first, thank you for coming on the show today. Thanks for taking the time out to be here to share your story with my listeners. I'm really excited to kind of dive into it. So thanks for being here.
Yeah, absolutely, Jason. I believe we met at a mastermind, a different one. I remember there was a variety of different entrepreneurs there. It wasn't real estate focused, but you happened to be in LA, and I think it was a speakeasy thing with
it was that Steve Sims speakeasy, which I mean that was a cool event too. But I mean, I had prior to that, I think I had already connected with you followed you on social media and seen kind of, so I recognized you from that. But I mean, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about networking. We'll talk about the power of social media and all of that. But tell us, tell the listeners your background, a little bit about your story, kind of let people know, a bit about you, so we can build from there.
Yeah, of course. So I've been a real estate investor now for 7 years, but I did get my start in real estate before that. Essentially, I grew up in Southern California, Los Angeles, and immigrant Mexican family. And after high school, I got right into banking, so got some experience into that field. And yeah, I actually love that industry, but it had a limited upside because you're not going to make that much money in banking overall. It's very consistent and secure. But then I went into the mortgage business, did very well there before the market crashed. So I guess that dates me a little bit. And then during that time, I came across I came across being a real estate agent. So I was doing a bunch of short sales, foreclosures were through the roof back then, 2008, 12. And so I started doing a bunch of short sales. That's really where I got the investor bug though, because I thought about it by looking at these closing statements. I'm getting these great deals approved for these investors, and then they're going flipping the properties. And at the time, I mean, these were big spreads. They were making like $100,000 a deal, and I was like, wow, man, that really appealed to me because I felt like, hey, they're fixing up this ugly house. I'm already doing a lot of work to get these opportunities as a real estate agent, so I'm already kind of in the field a little bit, in the business, but I want to be kind of doing what they're doing. But then I got lured back into the mortgage business and on the wholesale side, and that didn't quite work out, but it did give me kind of a little bit of runway to be able to kind of think about, hey, what do I want to do? And so in 2017 is when I began working for a real estate investor in Southern California. Just cut my teeth there, worked as a telemarketer, like literally ground level, just cold called 6-7 hours a day until I got my first deal in like about 3 months. And so I just started kind of working for him for about a year. And then after that, what was interesting is that in my career, I've always felt that growth is one of my values, right? I'm always trying to get better and things like that. And so I noticed that I wasn't growing with that company anymore. The guy kind of just wanted me to get him deals and didn't really want to teach me any more of the business. And then so I went and worked for another company that recruited me that was actually a really interesting company because they were operating sort of like a mini hedge fund. I mean, they had like 70-80 million dollars of capital. They were flipping like at scale, like 150, 200 properties a year. in Southern California. And so I went to go work for them and helped them buy over 50 houses in the year and a half I worked for them. And then, all that led to where I was able to kind of save enough money and begin investing on my own. And so I began to start flipping houses on my own in 2019. And so for about 3 years or so, I scaled up, was buying about 20 houses a year, was killing it, was doing, I was making a lot of money. And then the last couple of years, 2023, 24, 25, have kind of been just kicking the nuts, to be real with you. I know we're going to probably talk about that, but making a lot of money and then losing a lot of money and kind of going through that journey is kind of I'm kind of on the comeback journey right now. And so learned a lot. Love what I do. I'm gonna be focusing mainly on Southern California going forward, but essentially I've worked on over 100 real estate investment deals in that time, and I love what I do, but it's been difficult, particularly the last couple of years since interest rates rose.
Yeah, you're not the only one. Definitely has impacted me, but also like most people in the real estate world. I think it's been a challenging couple of years. It's in a lot of instances, real estate people make their money in real estate through transacting, and just hasn't been a lot of transaction is happening. Plus rates. I mean, there's just been a ton of headwinds that have hurt a lot of people, and so yeah, there's been certainly money lost, and I know investors that have lost their money, passive investors, active investors, all of it. So it's definitely, unfortunately, that's the state of where some things have been, but also not entirely a bad thing now as of where we stand, and we can take a lot from those lessons and learn. So I think that's a big part of what we can talk about today. I think that it's interesting. It just brings up that I think Warren Buffett quote that I love. That's just be fearful when others are greedy and greedy when others are fearful. And it's really interesting. What has been fascinating to me has been the psychology of what has happened over the last 4 or 5 years, and that probably when things were overpriced and the markets were too hot, everybody wanted in. And now that there's been a reset and there's some real opportunities and ways to make significant money again, it's been maybe the opposite. People are afraid, they're a little bit snake bitten. So hopefully maybe we can, I don't know, help people get a little more comfortable in today's environment, even though they might have been burned in the last couple of years. So um, I'm not sure where to start that conversation in terms of lessons learned, but maybe you have an idea of kind of what you would lead with, Alex, just as far as uh, some of your take homes in the last couple of years.
Yeah, of course. So I would say that I learned a lot when I first was working from 2017, 2019 and a half from these other investors. So I was paying my dues. For the first guy, what I noticed with him is that he had a very specific buy box. He didn't really stray outside of that. And so my job working for him was get me, fat deals, or I don't want to, work on them. Meaning I'm going to make $100,000 in profit,
Yeah.
or I'm not even going to touch it. And so I learned a lot about negotiating with him and how important it was to position yourself within the transactions in the best way possible, and to even maybe nibble off some more on potential good deals by doing inspections and just really having your cards right when you're presenting them to and going direct to seller and some of these things that you're probably going to get better deals when you're working directly with homeowners than if you're buying stuff that's on market, right? And so he was very strict on his buy box. The second company was, I think, also something where I learned how you could actually flip houses at scale, and that by having more inventory, it allowed you to actually make better decisions because you're in some cases you're kind of creating your own comps, and in other cases you have right, the intel, that you're in escrow to sell a property down the block, and then that's going to be a comp for that property. Also the economies of scale, so being able to look at the data. So they were a very data driven company, and so that taught me to get more involved on that side of the business of, hey, you need to be aware of all the numbers, and some neighborhoods you can be more aggressive than other neighborhoods because that neighborhood is trending. I mean, in LA, for example, just LA County, you're talking about thousands of neighborhoods, and the values of Echo Park are not necessarily affecting Long Beach. I mean, these are two completely different neighborhoods within LA County, and so I learned that in great detail from them. Is, hey, we can be very aggressive in this area because it's trending up. This area, based on data, is not. So we have to be more conservative. And so I really felt like I got like a master's degree in flipping, working for them by studying all the data that they had available to them with that many transactions that they were doing. And then, as far as like from the failures, I would say that the greatest lessons I reflected on and learned is one is you need to work with people that have experience. I think a lot of people talk about it in mentors, like, hey, you need to have mentors in your life, whether that be through books, that be attending seminars, conferences, or people that you pay directly to coach you. But along those lines, when I reflected back on my failures in the last couple of years, it really came to the top a couple of times where maybe I gave someone a chance and they had a great attitude, but they didn't really quite have the experience in that particular position. And it did work out at times, but oftentimes it didn't work out. And so I wasted time, energy, resources when I would have just been better off working with a person that already had experience doing that thing, whether that be someone I'm hiring to be in acquisitions and to help me get deals, or somebody that I'm hiring to manage a property, or somebody that I'm working with like a contractor in any of that aspect. So, because also one of the big failures I had was because of an architect. Two different architects on my multifamily project in Phoenix essentially just screwed me, just wasted my time and didn't do their job, were unprofessional. And these were recommended people from other investors. But since I didn't have as much experience in multifamily, even going through mentors, it still didn't actually solve the problem. And it was because I just worked with the wrong people. I should have fired these people sooner or not hired them. So I think that's a huge one that sticks out. Like if you want to do something big, achieve something, that you're better off working with people that have experience in whatever context capacity that you want to call that. So I think that's a huge lesson. Another one is sticking to what you're great at and your strengths or your core capacities, I think it's called oftentimes. So I mastered flipping in predominantly LA County and gotten really great at doing that. Can consistently find great deals. Well, one of my biggest failures, or my biggest failure, was this same deal in Phoenix where it was outside of my core capacity. Granted, I had a huge network out there. I had a team, all that. Now, the market was one of the main, issues in the short term high interest debt that we got on it, but it was outside my core capacity. And if you combine that with that lesson I just mentioned earlier, which not working with maybe the most experienced people, that was a recipe for a big loss. So I think that's another thing that I like to stress out is like, hey, try to stick to as much as possible your core capacity. Because if I had bought a multifamily building in LA, I don't really believe that I would actually have the same challenges. I would have been able to overcome, these challenges with the market and with the team that I wasn't able to overcome with that property there. And then the last one I would say is not getting kind of over leveraged, and that was a big problem. I know a bunch of other investors that encountered that when things are going great and you're making money, it seems like it's never going to end. And people are in a sense throwing money at you and saying, "Hey, you're having success. I want to. You're a racehorse and you're winning, so they want to bet on you." But what I learned was that some of these, potential capital partners or some of these people that I work with there were some red flags. Whether they were too aggressive on, the interest rate that they wanted to, get for, the short term or the medium term loans that they were providing, or they wanted the shorter timelines and things like that. Those people turned out to be much more aggressive when things didn't go according to plan, and made my life very difficult and stressful, and it impacted me. It impacted me because then I was kind of just playing defense or not going back to what I do best, and just kind of trying to just scrambling. And nobody does their best work when they're constantly putting fires all day, and that's the sense what I've learned, that if I had been on my core capacity doing flipping in LA and then keeping the best ones, that's my business model, and not gone outside my core capacity, then I wouldn't have failed as badly as I did in the last couple of years, particularly with that project leading the way on that.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, the core capacity piece is huge. Like using the things, especially for yourself, you had experience in real estate. I mean, some people I think coming into the real estate space maybe don't know what their core capacities are yet because they're just starting, and they that's where mentorship becomes even more important for that level. But for someone who's already been in it for a bit and had some success, it is it is tempting, it seems, to say, oh, I was good at X, I'll probably be good at whatever else I try, and just kind of branch off. So sticking with that, it goes right along with your point about markets. And I think, I mean, LA is maybe in some ways unique in the sense that it's many of its own markets within it. I think the best analogy for this is if you watch the weather forecast here in LA. There's going to be five forecasts every time. There's five forecasts, and it is because it is that different in sort of different parts of LA. You could use the example of the recent fires we had in January. The fire damage in Pacific Palisades versus the fire damage in Altadena, it's going to be treated very, very differently, and for other reasons outside of just climate. But there's just a lot of differences, even here in LA, that I think just kind of strengthens the point you made about sort of understanding what you do know and sticking with that and being able to, because I agree. You said, if you had bought a multifamily in LA, you probably wouldn't have run into the same issues. Not to say you wouldn't run into issues, but it's just a different thing. A lot of people talk about you shouldn't invest in California because of this, and this. There's lots of people making money investing in California. Like, you just have to understand how it works here, and you do, and have that experience. So I think it makes a lot of sense to kind of stick with what you know. Um, I mentioned kind of my first exposure to you was through social media. Then we met at that meetup, and I think and you have put on, I would say, some pretty impressive meetups yourself in the past that I've been to. So obviously, networking, connection, all of that is like a big part of what you do, and an important part. Would you talk a little bit about that, and maybe how it's helped you, and I don't know, maybe some examples of when it's created challenges for you, that sort of level of I guess exposure that those types of things provide?
Yeah, of course. So I think what comes to mind to me on that is I started attending meetups about a year and a half into my journey. So I was still technically working for the second company, and since we were a larger company and they had a lot of capital and I was buying a lot of deals for them, I thought, hey, maybe I attend some of these real estate investor meetups. And so I started going to some, and I noticed that they were kind of smaller, maybe 20, 30 people. And frankly, I just didn't see a representation of, as many, people like me there, predominantly, Caucasian, predominantly older. And it was like, well, where are kind of some of my Latinos at? Like, and so that was kind of bit of the start where I felt like, hey, I'd like to maybe host my own events, and maybe we could attract some other people that we could kind of put into the business and help them out and get them kind of leveled up. And so it's not like I didn't get value from going to those meetups. I just felt that, like, hey, this is something that I feel like maybe I could do in my own way. So
Yeah.
call it a remix, so to speak. And I think when you're in business and you notice what other people are doing and it is working, because if they're doing it over and over again, then it's probably working, then you should consider doing it yourself or creating yourself. Because a lot of times entrepreneurs, at least what I've learned, is they will create things that they want to see exist. And so that's kind of where that came from. Because I also used to do some hosting in nightclubs back in the day. And so I got that experience of, bringing groups of people out and things like that. And so I thought, hey, how hard can this be? I'm passionate about this. I have some experience already, and let me see if I can host something. And so it started out just at some of these flip projects that I had, and then I'd invite people and put it on my social media, and then likewise 20, 30, 40, 50 people would come out. But then the crowds got larger, and so I really couldn't do it at the projects anymore because it was a nuisance to the neighborhood. And because I was meeting some great connections there, people that wanted to work with me, whether that was like contractors that they wanted to come work on project with us, or it was potential capital partners, somebody that maybe had some money that they wanted to deploy, and they saw that I was flipping, multiple properties, and so they want to possibly work with me on that. Or sometimes you meet some people that maybe are earlier on the journey than maybe you are, and so the people that maybe want to work with you as an apprentice or intern, or maybe they have some qualifications to actually be a team member. And so I just noticed that, hey, this is kind of a bit of a superpower for me. I should probably double down on this because it's creating an environment where I'm able to attract quality people that are interested in what I'm doing to my network. And so it just kind of spawned from there. And then eventually I did set a goal of like, hey, I want to throw one of the largest free real estate investor events, in Southern California. And I could probably say that we were able to accomplish that because we got like about 500 people registered, and I think about 400 people attended. The total count through the door was 420 something. And so we did accomplish that because we had set that as a goal. What I learned on that though was like, damn, it's just too big of a crowd. It was a big mob, and there was just so many people. You're not able to meet 400 people in one day. So I like the crowds of right around 75 to like 125. I found that's kind of, you can still meet a high amount of people, and it doesn't get overwhelming for newbies and people that are just kind of starting out. And there's plenty of people that have a lot of experience in the room too. So that way everybody gets value, because ultimately, what do you go to meet up for? You go so you can get some value, you can meet some valuable connections and learn some things. So we really try to incorporate both of those. And it would cost me a little bit of money to host the events, but we got creative on that. We found event spaces that perhaps we didn't have to pay for, or we negotiated great deals with people that we're going to sponsor the event, so then that way they could get some exposure to all these people that are interested and potentially could be customers of their escrow, title, eviction lawyers, insurance people. And so it just kind of grew into that. And partly because I had the strengths and had the inclination and I wanted to create it, and then partly is that it was working. And I would see that every meetup that I would do, that I would either get deals, I would get contractors or people that I can work with in that, team members or capital. So it hit a lot of boxes. And so, but if you're newer and just kind of starting out in your journey, then you really want to go with the intention of, let me just learn, meet people that are doing things, and get opened up to a space of doing something that maybe other people are doing and remix it on my own. And if you're more advanced, then you maybe want to go to these to meet other people that you could work with in those other areas that I just mentioned.
Yeah, yeah, and I think, I mean, like I said, I've been to some of your meetups. They're great. I think um, I don't know, one of them was a lot of people, and I mean, it was really cool and fun. But I think it does. Your point about the numbers were, because you're not going to talk to 400 people. You're going to hopefully make some like meaningful connections with a handful of them, maybe 5 or 10 people. And so it's but it is a pretty valuable place to be, I think, if you can make those real connections in time. um, Social media, similar concept, but a little bit, obviously it's more than 400 people, right? I mean, depending on how many followers you can have, it'd be quite a bit more than that. Where do you see value there for you in a business sense, as investor, as a business owner? Where do you see value on the social media side?
Yes, social media has been a part of my journey, an integral part of my journey, because I bought my first deal in 2019 from somebody that was following me, a wholesaler or a newer wholesaler. And since that worked out to become a very profitable transaction, I just felt that, hey, this is something that I can duplicate and it's kind of scalable. And so, it just became one of those things that I incorporated. Not like I did anything crazy. It was just documenting what I was working on, and then people that were interested in what I was working on would reach out to me, and I just have candid, transparent conversations and see where that led. And so that's led to partnerships, to deals. And so I can't say I was like the earliest adopter, but social media has been around for a while. But using it for business was based on data. Like, oh hey, I got a deal, made X dollars. I probably put this much time into it weekly, and let me see if I keep doing this because I invested this time and it turned into a good return. And so let's keep doing that. Now, I will say for somebody that has maybe more of a outgoing personality, it might be easier for someone to do. But regardless, like I trip up on the camera. I started filming videos. I had no followers, and so everybody can kind of work on it as long as they put the best foot forward. Because you're not going to resonate with everybody. What I learned was that I had a certain kind of audience, which were predominantly Latinos, predominantly 20s to 40s, and predominantly in Southern California. And so when I would film content or any of that, it kind of was geared towards that kind of audience and what I could do to help those people that were watching that content for that purpose. And so just kind of taking a business approach to it and say, hey, where else can you get someone 600 people to watch a video of yours of what you're working on, or maybe 6,000, right, or 60,000. So it's one of those tools that you need to incorporate in your business in the way you see fit, because everybody treats it a little bit different. We've kind of got our own little system around it, so it doesn't really take too much of my time because what we're doing is we've allocated a certain amount of time to it every week, and that's it. It's just part of the machine, and so I use it. It's leverage. You're leveraging, and you're what you're already working on. And to go back a little bit to the meetup thing, when you combine the fact that hey, you're doing deals, you're being active, you're going out there and pursuing real estate investment deals, and then you're networking in person with people at some of these meetups, or if you decide to host your own, and then you're also being active on social media, it works well together because you're keeping those connections strong with the people you meet in person through the social media, or at least you're still top of mind or relevant. And then also the social media, you're attracting new people to you that possibly in the future you could do business with, and then maybe meet in person as well. And I'll tell you, when I meet someone that's been following me for 2 years and seeing all the grind, seeing all the ups and the downs, and I don't just post all the pretty stuff. I post all my challenges as well. So they get to see the good, the bad, the ugly, and then they meet me in person. They're like, "Hey, this guy's, you know, I've learned some things from him. I feel like I already know him. That connection is built much stronger, and then you can speed up the trust level there and potentially be able to do business with people in that way. So they really work well together. But you got to be taking action and doing deals, because otherwise you're just kind of produce content, or you're just going to meetups just to meet people. But if you're not doing anything with that information or with those connections, then you're just wasting time.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that point because there's a lot. I mean, with AI, there's even more on social media that's just straight out not real. But I do think that combining your social media as documentation of what you're doing with those like real life meetups and having people that you truly know there in person, like I do think that makes it all very I guess more defined and more concrete, that you're a real person, you're doing these things, you've shown that you're doing these things. Now, hey, let's talk in person about it and see where that combination can or where we can combine to do things. I mean, that's we've had those sort of conversations. So I think it's really definitely the two kind of work well together. You do have to actually kind of have something to show.
I'll say one more thing on that. But what I found, Jason, that the reason that most people don't do it, or at least my belief is because it's additional work, right? You can go and make offers, you can go and manage a rehab and do all that, but to document it and or go out of your way to go to a real estate investor meetup is extra work on top of the already amount of work that you have to do that's difficult on the real estate investment deals to begin with. So not many people are willing to do that. But it's one of the things you have to believe in and do to be able to see the rewards, because otherwise you're just gonna be like, why do I gotta go to meetups for, or why do I have to post stuff on social media? Well, you're missing opportunities there, but it is work on top of it, and that's why most people don't do it. That's what I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm sure that's a huge piece of it. I think you mentioned before the, I guess, introvert factor, where it's, you don't want. I mean, I have a podcast. I don't want my face on the camera. It's like one of those things that you do to, again, like document what you're doing, make connections, be someone. It's proof of concept, right? Someone comes along and they're like, "Hey, I want to, do business with this type of person." Well, now there's actually like a place they can go and look at what you've been doing and have, sort of see that road to where you've gotten. And I think it's important that you said, you share the good, the bad, and the ugly, because it's like if it's only a highlight reel, I think that's a little bit less believable. Um, Now it's like, people, there are real struggles in business and entrepreneurship and all of that. So understanding that is, I don't, I don't know if you agree, but I do feel like that's becoming more maybe common for some of the, especially some of the bigger name people, to be like, yeah, this is actually hard. Where it was for a while, it was like very sunshine and rainbows sort of portrayal. And, now you can see the big names on social media in business and real estate, and they're like, yeah, this is hard. These last couple of years have been hard, you know, and that's to be expected. Here's what we can do moving forward to, you know, mitigate some of those challenges, take the lessons and learn from them. Um, with that being said, Alex, what does the future hold for you? What's on your radar as kind of the next steps in your growth and business development?
Yeah, so I'm going to be focusing on my core competencies. One of my greatest strengths is, acquisitions. I won't be acquiring as many properties, but I can wholesale, and do those type of transactions, and just going to get my capital levels back up, because I sold off pretty much the majority of all my portfolio. So just so we could go ahead and pay off debt, and just it was hard to get long term financing on some of these deals anyway. So my business model has really always been similar to the first guy that I worked for. Hey, fix and flip, and just do a great job doing that. Dozen, 2 dozen properties annually, and then just keep the best ones that have the most upside potential, and then just flip the rest. And then hold the ones that maybe you could do an ADU on, or maybe a small multifamily. And so the last couple years, since I was mainly selling my properties off and completing projects, the 2025 and beyond, I'm kind of back into full offense, doing deals, and I'm excited about it because that's one of my strengths. But I've been playing more defense the last couple of years than offense, so I'm excited to get back into that mode. And so, I'm working on that. I have a side passion project called My Virtual Rock Stars. I have used virtual assistants all over the world for 5 years. I've had great experience with that. I've also had very bad experiences with it, and so people had hit me up about it because and during the pandemic, we didn't even talk about this yet. I actually physically moved to Hawaii, to Maui. It was partly because of Brandon Turner, the previous host of Bigger Pockets podcast. He influenced me, and he became a mentor of mine, and so he opened the doors up for me to move during the pandemic over there. And then I was flipping houses in LA and doing investing deals there, but I was mainly just living in Maui. Well, I built out this business and being able to kind of be more remote, or just having some location independence. Later on, a year or so later, I started spending a little bit more time in Mexico, and because frankly, it was just a great quality of life, low cost, and also I have a lot of family, and so I began to just live in those two places and then go to LA for business. Well, over the last couple of years, I sold my properties off in Hawaii, and then I've been kind of going back and forth between LA and Guadalajara, Mexico. Now, I say all that to say that I've seen the job market for people here, and it's not great. I'm currently here in Mexico, and they have a lot of dead end jobs here. And so part of this passion project is to help some of these Mexicans get jobs for US based companies And then the other part is I have benefited from having these kind of employees and team members. So I want to help entrepreneurs and people that are getting started, or wholesalers, investors, get talented people. And we've been kind of working on that project now for the last 3 months, and getting, placing people. It's not super lucrative, but it's a talent acquisition machine that I have now control over, that allows me to, on a flip of a switch, hire people for myself. And so it's kind of a selfish need there too, of saying, hey, if I have this machine going, make some money, give some people some jobs, give some entrepreneurs some talented people, and at the same time have access to some of the best, talent out there at a very affordable price. And so just kind of been working on that, and we'll keep on growing that. But full mode and acquisitions in LA. I will likely be doing some more meetups in the future. We haven't hosted one in close to a year, so definitely getting that itch to make some connections. Definitely throw some cool events, because also for me, it's like that cool factor. It's like throwing a huge real estate investor party where everybody's going there with like mind, and so that's kind of for me where it comes from. Where I want to be inspired and be around other people that are hungry and getting after it and have some experience. And there's people that attend my meetups that are far more successful than I've ever been, and I give them just as much credit. I should give them shout outs, and I get to connect with them because I'm always looking for mentors as well. Because even though I've worked on more than 100 deals, Jason, I still am learning a lot, particularly because the last couple of years have been so challenging. And I think 2025, as you said, it will be a little bit sluggish. That's my prediction. Just like with the other years, where there's not as many transactions. We eat based on how many transactions are happening. So I think at the height it was like 6 million or some number close to that. We've been hovering around 4 million. This is single family real estate transactions existing, not new construction. But when the transaction volume is so low, it's just less for everybody to eat, less for everybody to do business. And so for me, I just want to get back to consistency, offensive mode, and then just it's comeback season for me, because I'm digging myself out of a big hole. I know I'm capable of doing it. If I made millions of dollars and then lost millions of dollars, then I know that I'm capable of doing that again. It's going to be a road, a difficult road, but I've already had nothing, and so now that I have the experience, I know that it's something that it won't take me as long to be successful, and just staying in my core capacity is kind of my main focus right now.
Yeah. I mean, it makes a lot of. I think that's, I don't know. Sometimes what hard times will do is sort of bring us back to what works. So you hear about that in sports a lot. Team suffers a bad loss, and it's like, oh, let's take it back to fundamentals and do those core competencies well and focus on them, and it allows you to have uh, success based on what you've been already successful in, rather than trying to branch out and all of that. So no, that's great. I think the future looks great for you. It's been you've shown the ability to be successful. So Alex, I like to ask every guest, the name of the show is Know Your Why. So I like to ask every guest, what is your why? I think, you've probably touched on some things that are important in your life, in your past, in your world. And so, what's driving you right now? What's kind of that North Star?
Yeah, great question. I believe that my deep why is to maximize my potential, and that would include making an impact. That would include me becoming the absolute best version of myself. I've been able to accomplish some great things in my life because of perseverance, because of having that underdog mindset, and then growing up in a very underprivileged, household, but with a lot of love, but we didn't have a lot of money. And so I think just proving that I can, be somebody that can, make a true, influence and impact on, the world. I think, this business, when done correctly, like, can have a tremendous, just benefit to a lot of people. So it's a win-win. I know that's kind of cliche, but one of the main things that got me into real estate investment is because I wanted to be just all in on something, passionate about something, really engaged, proud of what I do. And real estate investment has done that for me. When I'm flipping property, and I'm buying someone's huge headache, huge problem, and taking that off of their hands and off of their plate, and then I'm going out there and getting people some jobs. A lot of these contractors are Latinos, and so that's a sense of pride for me. And so they get to work on my projects, improving neighborhoods, and making sure that certain neighborhoods that are underprivileged, similar to the areas that I grew up in, are improving and getting better. Because it depends on who you ask, but Los Angeles has definitely had its ups and downs, and it seems like it definitely has. It's an amazing city. I think I see some recently. It's like the fifth wealthiest city in the world, but it also has a lot of homelessness and a lot of crime. And so I definitely want to be a part of the solution and not part of that the problem. And so I think just personal growth, just constantly getting better, learning, and then ultimately making some impact on other people that is a benefit to them is something that drives me.
Yeah, fantastic. When people hear this and they want to reach out, what's the best way for them to connect with you?
So my main channel on social media is Alex Camacho TV. That's Camacho. They could follow me there. I do have somebody that helps me respond to some messages, and so we can connect if they're in Southern California. Maybe they attend one of our events. But happy to share anything I can and help other people in their journey of real estate investment because I've seen a lot. So I definitely want to help other people avoid any mistakes that I've made.
Fantastic. Well, we'll definitely get that in the show notes for people to find you. Listen, this is great. I appreciate having you on the show. I look forward to us maybe bettering Los Angeles and some of these neighborhoods together. I think that'll be really fun to put some projects together.
Yeah, and that's why we reconnected, because through social media, I saw you posted that you got your contractor's license, and so I was, since I've been looking into possibly doing some ADUs and building some small multifamily in LA, I reached out to you, and then we had lunch, and we were able to kind of connect on that, and looking forward to working with you on some projects in the future, man.
Yeah, it's a perfect example of what you were talking about. That sort of combination of social media and in-person connection to just grow businesses. So thank you for being here. Super appreciate the time and everything you shared. It was a great conversation.
Thank you, Jason.
Folks listening, make sure you connect with Alex and please like, rate, and review the show so we can get more great guests. Thank you all for listening.
Hey there, I am Dr. Jason Ballara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast, where we explore the why behind success. Every week, I meet with real estate investors, veterinary entrepreneurs, mindset coaches, authors, and fitness professionals to uncover their why and how it drives them on the winding road to success. What is your why?